Center in Henderson, Nevada. I'm a board-certified family physician, and we're continuing our series on the book Wheat Belly. In the next chapter we're going to talk about Wheat Belly discusses celiac disease as a primary example of intestinal inflammation being caused by wheat gluten and wheat consumption. Now, I want to be clear that celiac disease is a very serious disease, and if you have celiac disease, you absolutely should avoid wheat and barley and rye and any other products that have gluten in them. But the book tries to then establish a link between wheat consumption and another condition called irritable bowel syndrome. Now, irritable bowel syndrome is much, much more common, but the book makes absolutely no attempt to establish a scientific link between wheat consumption and irritable bowel symptoms. In fact, the book admits there is no scientific link between irritable bowel and wheat consumption and relies instead on the author's personal experience and his claim of hundreds of cases. But these hundreds of cases aren't clearly documented, and there's no, really scientific evidence brought forward even from the author's own personal experience. So we have to regard that in the same way that we regard, somebody who's selling you a specific car, telling you, oh yeah, all my customers really love this car. It's possible it's true, but we certainly can't use it as evidence in favor of a position from a disinterested point of view. Then the book goes to a chapter where it tries to establish clear links between wheat consumption and type 2 diabetes. And here the book really shoots itself in the foot. The book references a study that looks at the rates of diabetes in Ireland from the 1830s through the modern era. And what this study clearly states is that it is not wheat consumption that caused the epidemic of diabetes that happened in Ireland after the change from the traditional Irish diet of potatoes, but that it is fat and sugar that caused this. In fact, the study itself shows that in 1833, when the Irish were consuming 87% of their calories from carbohydrate, and most of that was coming from potatoes with a small amount of wheat flour, the rate of diabetes in Ireland at that point was 2 per million people. And this was when they're consuming 7% of their calories from fat. When that rate of fat consumption went up to 24% of calories about 100 years later, the diabetes rates almost approached the modern rates of diabetes in Ireland. And 24% of calories of fat in the United States right now would be considered an extremely low-fat diet to most people. And yet we saw huge increases in diabetes in Ireland with just an increase of fat calories from 7 to 24%. And this is the exact opposite of what Wheat Belly is trying to tell you. So what we've found is that whole grain consumption, and whole grains include wheat, is typically associated in almost all studies with major reductions in all the things Wheat Belly tells you are good. Wheat Belly says you shouldn't be obese. Well, whole grain consumption helps prevent obesity. Wheat Belly tells you that visceral fat or abdominal fat is bad for you. Well, whole grain consumption reduces that. Wheat Belly tells you insulin resistance is bad. Whole grain consumption reduces insulin resistance. Wheat Belly tells you type 2 diabetes is bad. Rates of type 2 diabetes drop when people eat large amounts of whole grains. So if you follow the advice in Wheat Belly and avoid starchy carbohydrates out of some fear about insulin, you're doing the exact wrong thing. Anybody who has any questions about this can review our previous videos, and you're welcome to visit us at our website, allenwellness.com. And we're very excited about teaching people these very, very well-established scientific facts and blowing up this myth that is present in Wheat Belly. Thank you for your time.